I think the GH5 is probably the most versatile camera out there, and that's because it has so many different things it can do. And just to prove that, I'm going to go through some of my favorite hidden features of the GH5 and bring them to light. One of my favorite features is called the live crop feature, which you can find in the first menu tab. And you can either have the duration of the crop last for 20 or 40 seconds. And I'll show you what this does. But I have mine set to function button 3. Let's just do 20 seconds. So here you can set 2 in and out points, or one of each. So we can adjust the first one and you can select any part of the frame. So let's just start here. And then you have your end frame, so we can move it over here. And once we press record, it will digitally zoom in and it'll do all the cropping inside the camera. And you can do some pretty cool effects. I've noticed that you can actually duplicate things afterwards, like I've done in this video here. You can do all this stuff in post as long as you don't move the camera, but I do feel like it is just a little bit easier to have in pre-production, and it just eases your editing process. Of course, you can adjust this to be anything really. You can have it to be a sliding shot. This is a really cool effect, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. This next feature comes in handy when you're dealing with focal lengths, or maybe you don't have the right focal length. Go into the menu and go to X Teleconvert and turn that on. Actually, I have mine saved again to function 1 up here, so I can just toggle that on and off super quick. So that's all the adjustments I need. And once we turn that on, it crops in. So right now I'm in 4K, so it's a 4K crop, becoming a 2.6 crop factor. This is handy when you have a limited focal range. If you shoot in 1080, you actually get a further crop because it's actually taking 1080 from the sensor itself. This is especially handy when you don't have time to switch out lenses and you need to get more reach. But this is so handy and definitely beneficial, and if you can have it toggled right here on the function button, makes it super easy and convenient. The GH5 sensor is actually a 4x3 sensor, hence micro four thirds. So it's actually pretty neat that you can actually record in anamorphic 4x3. This is cool for anamorphic lenses, so it actually captures more vertical resolution. But you can actually use this feature without an anamorphic lens. You can shoot in 4K or actually go all the way up to 6K recording. And what this allows you to do is it gives you more vertical resolution, which you can play with in post. So imagine if you have a tight framing or you can't exactly get your framing right in camera, we can actually play with that image in post to get the right framing. Now, if you are doing product shots, this is actually pretty cool since you have more leeway in post. You can actually do these rotations. So if I press record, you can actually just rotate it in post because you have more room to do so. If it was 16:9, you wouldn't have as much room. So it's very beneficial to have on notice. On the GH5, I like to shoot in log as much as possible. That way I can just apply a lot in post and be able to easily color grade and get nice looking footage in post. But if you don't have the plugin or whatever the firmware is for a vlog, you can actually manipulate your footage in post with much more detail, much more range by using HDR recording. So to do that, we need to go into the format and change it to hybrid log gamma, and that's the photo style we are shooting with. And what this does is it shoots in a higher colored space basically, so you have more color detail and everything is just broader. But when you bring it into post, you can actually squish it back down into a regular Rec 709 timeline. So clearly in camera it is overexposed and it's not good, but you're able to bring it back down in post to something more reasonable, which is really cool. So this is handy when you don't have vlog and you want to get more manipulation in post. Something that not a lot of people talk about is variable frame rate recording, and this is very similar to what many cinema cameras do. Is it will actually convert the slow motion recording in camera. So for instance, if I want to choose exactly 22 frames per second to film in or crank it up all the way, it will already convert that into a 24 frames per second. So when I bring that to the timeline, I don't have to slow anything down. It's already there. This is great when actually you're using Premiere Pro, and if you're already going to slow down the footage, You can immediately bring on that warp stabilizer if you need to without doing those nested sequences. So not only that, you're able to choose the exact frame rate. It'll give you these intervals, so you can't dial in exactly, but it will definitely give you much more control than just shooting 30, 60, 180, 120, 96 for instance. So you can dial in exactly how you want it, which is pretty cool. So this is a feature that not many people talk about, but it might be just for you, and it's actually pretty neat how this works. This is called focus transition, and if you have a native Micro Four Thirds lens, you can set your position of focus, and it will do all the hard work for you. So let's go into pool setting, and I'm going to set my first position to be on this back wall right here, and I'll press set, and then the second position will be up here up front on the GoPro. And then you can even set a third position, which is pretty neat. Now if I go back and press start, as you can see, if I press 1, it will shift from the background all the way to the close-up. So I'm going to set it to 1, press record, and set it to 2. And of course you could even have a third position. And this is really neat when you need those very fine-tuned things. And if you can already set up prior, but if you need to just pull it and then you have it all ready to press and rack focus. Pretty neat. Like I said, this might not be for everyone, but it is a pretty neat feature. And I heard you can actually do this with a non-native lens, but it doesn't work as seamlessly. So just keep that in mind. This is a feature that's easily overlooked, and that's the Wi-Fi capabilities of the GH5. And what this is actually really beneficial for is using the companion app on your phone. And this utilizes many different things. For instance, you can actually operate your camera wirelessly. By taking advantage of the Wi-Fi app, you can utilize and control your camera from a distance. So this is particularly helpful when you are filming by yourself, lighting yourself, and you need to make sure you stay in focus and you have proper exposure and all that good stuff. So you can control ISO, you can control the shutter speed, all while it's recording too. And so I can go back, and I can even control white balance and shift that to any setting that I see fit. And once I'm all ready to go, I can even press record or even stop record. Here's a feature I'm going to mention, but it's not going to demonstrate too well, is actually using the stabilizer settings. There's actually, once you go in here, there's a few different settings you can operate. You can have electronic stabilization. I never actually used that, but it might work. IS lock is the one I want to mention. When we turn this on, this behaves a little differently than the regular stabilization mode. When we use this, it will try just to keep the furthest object stable. So if you have a telephoto lens and you're trying just to hand hold it and keep it perfectly still like a tripod, that's what you want. So for instance, let's try to focus here on the background. Let's say I'm filming, that's like a nice waterfall, for instance, and I'm just trying to keep as still as possible. It will keep that like a tripod shot, more or less, which is really handy. So whenever you just don't have a tripod around and you just need it super still, you can switch that IS lock on. But as you can see, if you move around, that foreground wiggles a little bit. But of course, we can always change back to regular old image stabilization, and it will just try to smooth everything out. If you found any of these hidden features useful, let me know in the comments. Thanks.